to our game 1 of this best of 3 between Renzo and Luke. This is for a lot of marbles. You don't want to go out here. Let's see what Luke is going to lead with. It is going to be that Colossal and that Urshifu. And for Renzo, it is the Incineroar and the Charizard. So pretty typical start here for Luke, just kind of going with a very classic duo for this team.
They work well together. I mean, Aqua Jet into weakness policy, set up Steam Engine, throw down a big attack. Really, really impactful when that gets going. Of course, the Incineroar does have the ability to try and slow things down a little bit. Maybe weave in one of those fake outs. Maybe try and, weave in something like the parting shot to deal with the damage that Urshifu could put down. But Renzo looks like he's already going in and trying to make decisions on how to mix up this team. The Charizard would get put very, very dangerously low or just knocked out by the G-Max Volcolith as well. So has to be respectful of that, has to think about that, because that's a move that, Renzo's going to know about the residual damage from Gigantamax moves. He's got 2 of them on his team. Is going to have to be respectful of the one that Luke has available in the G-Max Volcolith as well. So I like the Groudon switch in here. The double damages to pull it off and get into exactly the position he wants to be.
Ooh, well, it might have just worked out for Renzo because it's going to be a Detect and a Protect coming out from Luke.
He got away with it. Renzo got away with the double switch. The threat of the fake out from Renzo's Incineroar, forcing that double protect or protect detect, if you want to be specific, means this double switch goes completely unpunished. He gets to completely pivot his board, get the combination of Sun set up along with the Venusaur, and just go from there. Really, really good turn there for Renzo.
That was super, super good, and it puts Renzo in such a dominant position when it comes to board positioning. That Groudon is going to be threatening a lot of damage onto Luke's Pokemon, but despite that, we are going to go ahead and see a big Gigantamax here. At least I'm gonna think it's it's gonna be that Colossal. It's getting ready to rumble as it stares down that Groudon and that Venusaur on Renzo's field. Let's see what happens next, though, because here comes the Aqua Jet. Not gonna do a whole lot to that Colossal damage-wise because of the Sun, but you do have that Steam Engine and that weakness policy being activated for this Colossal. And as we've seen this interaction before, that should mean this Colossal can go first, so it is going to go with a powerful Max Flare right into the Venusaur and just knock it out before it can even move, despite that Chlorophyll ability.
Yeah, the Steam Engine just too powerful when it comes to dealing with something like that, but the Precipice Blades is also pretty powerful, able to immediately fell that Colossal. Yes, you didn't get the damage down on the Urshifu, but most importantly, that Colossal is gone. It's a 1-for-1 trade, and in doing it, Renzo didn't give up, his Gigantamax. He didn't Gigantamax the Venusaur, just let it go down in normal form, and this Groudon really coming back strong with the Precipice Blades to just knock it out. This now means that your other option for Gigantamaxing, the Charizard, can come into play, and the biggest threat to it in that Colossal is already gone. It's got the Sun, it's got its best counter removed on your opponent's side of the field. So I think Renzo this turn could just start to throw down that damage and cause as many problems. Of course, the Sun helps out a little bit for Luke's side, the Urshifu's Aqua Jet not doing as much damage to the Colossal, but it also means the Urshifu's damage towards this Charizard isn't going to be as impactful either. So that Sun really helping out, and you can just see why these combinations are ever present in the video game championships.
Absolutely. Worried there for a second because Renzo looked like they were about to try to hit a raw hurricane. Rethought about that one and did go for a max airstream. We are going to see that Charizard Gigantamax here before it is able to dish out that big damage. But yeah, wow. I'm glad that Renzo went back and looked at that again. Togekiss going to take a nice big chunk out of its HP. and that is going to increase the speed of both the Charizard and the Groudon. So the Groudon can go with this Rock Slide, which will connect onto both Pokemon, knocking out that Togekiss, and that Urshifu is pretty vulnerable now.
The Urshifu doesn't have its Focus Sash anymore, so it's going to be easier to knock out. Look at the Sun helping out there against those surging strikes, just not able to land anywhere near the requisite amount of damage that is needed. So really nicely done. Again, fantastic team building, looking at a consistently great core and really keying into it. Solar Power does of course get a bit more damage down on that Charizard, but dealing with the Togekiss means it's going to be a 3-2 Pokemon advantage for Renzo, and ooh, that is not the one that you want to come in to try and deal with this Charizard. Not at all.
I don't think Zacian wins that fight.
It does not, and there's also a speed boost over on the Charizard as well. So looks like Luke's Pokemon selection hasn't quite worked out in this game. I mean, it at least gets its Intrepid Sword boost, gets to come in and maybe try and threaten some damage there, but that early exchange of Gigantamaxes just put Luke so far behind that I think he's going to have to maybe take this time to learn any information he can get. It is of course Clone's team sheet, and now is the time to learn in any matchup at the end of game one. If you're going down, drag it out, try and rack up a little bit more information on your side, but the Charizard gets to move first, and I think you and I both know how this one pans out.
Yes, it does. It pans out with a Zacian getting knocked out, that G-Max Wildfire Chip being present if it is needed, but Groudon lands this Precipice Blades, and there is no Focus Sash to save this Urshifu. It's still enough, but yeah, it's going to go down to that G-Max Wildfire damage at the end of the turn.
It's going to get caught between turns. It did try, maybe just seeing how much damage I can do with something like the close combat. But even that Groudon, feeling very, very confident. That Urshifu's been sat on the field since turn one, and it's been a little bit low impact overall. Just it managed to land the Aqua Jet. But honestly, when we look and assess that game overall, that turn one from Renzo, it was audacious, to be honest. It was so cheeky to bluff using the fake out, double switch, and from there, getting the Groudon in was the most important part, because the Groudon, was able to land that Precipice Blades, putting the Venusaur in, a little bit of a interference, if you will, kind of a bait for that Colossal. The Colossal just said, you know what, I'm going to go after you with the Max Flare. Thank you very much for the Sun. I'm going to make sure I get the damage down, but you didn't deal with the Groudon, and the Groudon was really what pushed that game very, very quickly back into Renzo's favor.
I do respect Luke's Gigantamax of the Colossal, though, because that was a pretty high-risk, high-reward play that unfortunately didn't quite work out for him in that game one, but had it worked, maybe that Precipice Blades missed, or just something had gone in a little bit more of Luke's favor, that game could have ended very differently. So let's go ahead and see what happens in this game two. Renzo is up 1-0 in this best-of-3 series. Let's see if this is going to be the conclusion, or if we're going to tie things up if Luke can take a win. Luke actually going to be bringing out Dragapult and Togekiss. Those are two Pokemon that I haven't seen next to each other in quite a while. But Renzo also going to be bringing out the Groudon and the Umbreon.
That is a throwback to a very many formats ago, actually. That's something, like you said, we've not seen it in a while. But the Dragapult on this team definitely has a role to fill, and I don't think it's supporting the Togekiss. I'm pretty sure the role that it's trying to fill is more setting up the steam engine for the Colossal. So interesting to see it in the lead right now, but maybe going back to the drawing board, seeing that could be an option. The Umbreon on the field, definitely not the safest, probably not feeling its best to start out this game, but it is a mix-up that Renzo seems to like. Bringing that Umbreon in game two is exactly what he did before, the second time out against Leonardo, being able to try that one out, and I like that he's not afraid to try something new and kind of explore all the avenues for his team. It does apply good pressure down onto the Dragapult, potentially, which is going to be important, I think.
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty important because there is a Dynamax on the field, and it is that Dragapult for Luke. So let's see what this Dragapult is going to be able to do. Usually when you see a Dragapult next to a Colossal, it is typically running support for that Colossal, but this is Dynamax times. So we are going to be able to see Dragapult dish out some pretty big damage too. Going to kick things off with a Max Whirlwind, which is going to lower the attack of both the Umbreon and the Groudon, but it goes into the Umbreon to at least get the big damage. So I think that's going to help out a lot, though, for Luke, just knowing that Groudon's not going to be hitting nearly as hard as it would be. But Renzo kind of sees this coming, goes for the Swords Dance, and so will be able to mitigate that drop and get to a +1. Yawn, however, from the Umbreon, because of that Follow Me, will go right into the Togekiss.
And that limits Togekiss's usefulness. You know, it's got one more turn before it has to sacrifice itself and say it's going to fall asleep. Or it has to switch out in this turn to prevent that, and that means that you can't follow me if you're switching out. So really tough predicament. Really nicely done from Renzo, actually, to read into that and say, you know what, I'm just going to set up a Swords Dance. You can throw down the Max Whirlwind. I can take it with the Umbreon, that's fine. But at the same time, I am going to be able to fire back. And this Groudon in a great position in this following turn. Will be interesting to see how the Groudon decides to play this out. With the Togekiss and the Dragapult on the field with the Dragapult Dynamaxed, it really does feel like we've turned the clocks back a little bit here. And one of the core functions of Luke's team, you know, I have to assume it's not been brought along with that Colossal. Been struggling with it a little bit today, and I like that he's leaving it at home this time. But the Togekiss forced to switch out from that Yawn, and Renzo, if he can capitalize on it, could put himself in a great position here.
Well, the Max Whirlwind is going to come out and knock out the Umbreon, but more importantly, put Groudon back to neutral attack after that Swords Dance came through and the Max Whirlwind a turn before. So Groudon is going to be able to use Precipice Blades, but Dragapult avoids the attack. It's just going to be the Urshifu that switched in for the Togekiss that takes the brunt of the damage.
That's really not what you want to see. You do want to land some damage down onto the Dragapult there, so you can easily clean it up after the Dynamax turns are over. But what I think is a good sign for Renzo here is obviously he has two candidates for the Gigantamax. He has the Venusaur and the Charizard available in the back, so he can take his time with that one. He's got control of the weather. The sun is up, so he'll be able to Sleep Powder if he wants, or just use the Chlorophyll ability to deal big damage nice and early on. You know, and this Dragapult's only got one more turn of Dynamax left as well. The Groudon's still at full health, and two of those turns have been spent just trying to deal with getting rid of the Umbreon and, of course, keeping the attack stat manageable from this Groudon. So really kind of nicely done. Even though he's down a Pokemon, I still think Renzo's in a pretty good position to try and see out the rest of this game and force a comeback, really. Just because he's used that Gigantamax a bit later, he's going to get really good value out of the residual damage between turns as well. And, you know, I am wondering a little bit, you know, is Luke maybe a little bit behind the pace, even though he's got a Pokemon advantage?
Yeah, Dragapult on Luke's side spent a lot of time trying to downplay the amount of damage that Renzo would be able to do with that Groudon. Even just what we're seeing here with the G-Max Vine Lash, it's not doing a whole lot, but it's the residual damage that is the most important. But look at this! Dragapult is actually going to go for a Max Geyser based on Surf to be able to deal some damage to Groudon, but also change the weather. That is such heads-up play from Luke, because now that Venusaur is not going to be going very fast, and if Renzo wants to get the sun back up, he is forced to switch out that Groudon and bring it back in.
Yeah, that's really forced. It's kind of doing similarly to what Renzo did to him early on, right? Renzo forced the switch with the Yawn. Now that use of the Max Geyser, yes, the damage wasn't as much, but it does force the switch, and you can then start making reads and predictions into what the last Pokemon is, you know, based on what you saw in game number 1. So really going to be a bit an important turn for Luke right now. He's lost, of course, access to his Dynamax. It's already done. It's been used. And this Venusaur's still got 2 more turns of its Gigantamax to go. Yes, it's not going to be the fastest thing available, and that is going to be a little bit frustrating, I'd say, for Renzo. You know, you do want it to be playing with that Chlorophyll ability in action. Just making sure you're moving first, making sure you're putting damage down nice and early on. But it's kind of weird, you know, there's not as much to capitalize off this, you know, this use of something like the Surf. You're going to be doing too much damage to yourself.
Yeah, ooh, a critical hit though onto the Venusaur from that Dragon Darts is going to do more damage than Renzo would have expected, but with that Weather Ball turning into Max Geyser in the rain, it is going to connect with Luke's Togekiss, but Groudon connects on both Pokemon with Rock Slide, So that is a double knockout for Renzo.
Oh, how the tables have turned. Being able to use the weather that Luke set up against him just for good damage, you know, getting the boost from the weather immediately, really, really helpful for him there, I think. And just putting that Togekiss in range to get easily knocked out would have been caught, of course, by the residual damage between turns. But once again, this forces Luke to his last 2 Pokemon. And that means, you know, the game plan for Renzo becomes a whole lot easier. Just needs to make sure it can get through the last 2 turns. Does mean Renzo still has access to the switch out if that's what he's looking to do. You know, maybe set up that Sun for later, knowing that something like the Charizard is really going to appreciate it. Could be really, really important here.
Yeah, I kind of wonder, because the rain is set up right now, which is going to help out Luke's Urshifu Rapid Strike.
I think you've got to change that weather. I think just to be safe,
yeah,
you know, you don't want the Charizard to come in the rain against the Urshifu. So the Groudon probably has to try and weave in a switch out here. Or, you know, there has to be a play where you can do that. But if you keep it in, you know, like I say, you just have to be respectful enough of the Urshifu. And the Urshifu, you know, there's only so many ways around it because of its ability. So you can't just kind of protect and wait for it to drop, you know, because of the residual damage coming in between turns.
Ooh, well, there was one good call at least to be able to deny the Behemoth Blade, but Luke is going to go for the Surging Strikes. Groudon's not going to get a chance here. Yes, it does have access to its Citrus Berry, but we just saw how much damage that first Surging Strikes did, and the second one is going to be enough to knock out that Groudon.
Yeah, I think the Groudon, you know, I like that there was the Protect over on the side of the Venusaur, keeping it safe from the Behemoth Blade. Really, really nicely done. But, you know, you're just playing in rain for the rest of the game, and Urshifu, you know, feeling pretty good, I'd imagine, about its chances to try and maybe try and swing this game entirely that way. Of course, it's only got a couple turns to do that. It is on the timer from the G-Max Vine Lash. But, you know, you're not getting your Venusaur going first either, which I think is overall a bigger problem than it might be one to let on. So this game could turn around if Luke's able to capitalize and use this Urshifu perfectly over the next couple turns.
Yeah, Urshifu is going to be really good here. But hold on a second. Charizard does have Hurricane, which is going to be very, very accurate in the rain. Behemoth Blade coming out first, though, from the Zacian, right into the Venusaur. Venusaur is not going to get a chance to move again for this second game. But what happens next? Charizard is going to be able to land the Hurricane. It's faster than Urshifu.
Charizard getting that Hurricane down, taking advantage. You know, it looked like you really wanted the sun for this team, but actually this Charizard is equipped to play in the rain, question mark? Just by using that Hurricane, able to guarantee a huge hit. And now we're just in this 1v1. I mean, Charizard versus the Zacian. It's going to be a tight one. The rain is up. Zacian can't take advantage of it. It does still have its attack boost, but the Hurricane's still in play. And the Hurricane, you know, side effects of the Hurricane could be quite problematic as well, even though it's going to be not very effective. You know, will it do more than the Heat Wave? The Heat Wave in the rain is going to be really, really tough. And this is kind of one of those details that I think Renzo has to know about when it comes to planning ahead for his team. I like the Protect here, actually. I like the Protect to see to the end of the rain, but you left room for the substitute.
Yeah, I think that was a really great play by Luke, just recognizing Substitute's going to buy me at least one turn. This Heat Wave's not going to go through to the base HP, but I do love Hurricane. We'll talk about that a little bit more after this match concludes or in between games. But yeah, I think that Renzo is in this position where Heat Wave has to hit. Yeah, you've got to get rid of that substitute.
It's got to hit twice, and you've got to not get knocked out between those two heat waves hitting. So a whole lot being asked of you know, this Charizard. It did well in the rain. Now the rain is gone. It really doesn't have an excuse. And don't forget, Zacian's faster than Charizard. So this Charizard needs to take 2 Behemoth Blades, which I'm going to say is quite an ask. There's 1, but 2 is definitely not going to be comfortable. And you know, as soon as the Zacian gets to attack again, Luke's pulled it back with that substitute. It's going to need 2 more. It's still going to have to take another Behemoth Blade or 2.
The heat wave missed though. Renzo knows that this game 2 is over and Luke is able to clutch it back, tying up the series 1-1. We're going into a game 3. And how exciting is that? Now I finally get a chance to talk about why I think Hurricane is really cool on this Charizard. So typically when you see Charizard, where it gets max airstream from is usually Air Slash. It hasn't been until more recently that players have looked at Hurricane and gone, okay, yeah, there's the downside that it is only 70% accurate, and that's not really great to be able to use outside of Gigantamax, but in Gigantamax it actually boosts max airstream's power by 10. Air Slash is only a base of 130, and Hurricane's base is 140 for max airstream, so you are getting a little bit of a power boost there when you are choosing Hurricane over Air Slash.
Hey, you just got to be careful when you play it outside of the Gigantamax. You got to be really careful, and you know, it looked like it may have been the winning move there, but it wasn't enough to deal with rain. That Zacian. You know, the rain was there, the Hurricane was really, really important. Really, really kind of well played endgame, but let's not forget, Luke managed to win that game, that substitute turn, where the Charizard played it safe in the rain, was punished so well by the substitute, and then just able to tidy it up from there. So into game 3 we go. Renzo probably needing to go back to the drawing board a little bit. Gonna be honest, can we just leave the Umbreon at home? It's really not been impressive all day. I don't think it's gonna have a big impact in game number 3.
Luke is starting things off the same way that he did in game 2, which was with that Dragapult and that Togekiss, and Renzo is bringing that Umbreon and Groudon again.
I want to see more out of the Umbreon. Maybe, you know, I liked that it put the Snarl down in the first turn. I like that it, you know, a Snarl, Yawn, my apologies, being able to pressure that Togekiss out. But maybe the Snarl is the way to go here, you know, lowering those, getting a bit of chip damage down. You know, there's got to be better options, because it just sat there and took those max worm wins. Yes, it did buy a couple turns of that, but I don't know if that was overall the best use of the Umbreon. So we'll be curious to see how the adaptations come through from both trainers. I mean, maybe that game, even though he won it, was pretty close for comfort for Luke. Be curious to see how he does in this one. But it looks like the clocks stay rolled back as, of course, the Togekiss is on the field, partnered up with the Dragapult and the Dragapult Dynamaxes. It really is like a previous format. But I like he's left the Colossal at home. We finally get to see him win a game without the Colossal, and it stays on the bench for game number 3 when your tournament life is on the line.
And Togekiss just going for a very classic move, that Follow Me, and a Max Phantasm now coming out from the Dragapult. So not a max worm win this time around, and that is going to make things just a little bit easier for Luke later on, as that's going to drop the defense of both the Umbreon and the Groudon, so that Dragapult's going to hit a little bit harder.
Yeah, Dragapult's going to hit a little bit harder, and targeting the Groudon here, probably more important than getting rid of the Umbreon. Yes, you're going to have to be careful about it, but what I like from Luke's side is he knows that the potential for the Swords Dance is there. We saw the Swords Dance in game number 2, he saw the Swords Dance in game number 2, and he says, well, if I can just attack you twice, while you turn 1 Swords Dance, turn 2 try and attack me with it, as long as I get the drop, I think that the Max Phantasm, getting the defense drop to make sure that you can get the knockout this second time after the berry has been activated. Really nice planning, really nice learning through the game from Luke. And this Dragapult now is going to apply a lot of pressure to this Groudon. Yeah, the Togekiss got yawned again. It may have to do some switching out a little bit here. You know, and the fact that the Togekiss just follow me there, yes, it ate the yawn for its troubles, but, you know, that was sort of expected, I think, from Renzo. But this Dragapult's in a great position for this turn. The defenses are both lowered, and, you know, that may just force the Groudon out, meaning that turn for the Swords Dance was wasted, and its berry's already been consumed. So we'll see exactly how this one is decided to be handled. And this is, you know, why Dragapult's always been a good candidate to be Dynamaxed, but going after the Umbreon in this turn, probably expecting the Groudon to leave.
Well, that is going to help with the Swords Dance the Groudon just got, so it is only going to be at +1. Precipice Blades, though, obviously not going to be hitting the Togekiss, but it does hit the Dragapult. But Togekiss is going to go for the Dazzling Gleam. Umbreon goes down here, and Groudon is below half. So pretty good turn, I would say, for Luke, despite the fact that Togekiss is going to get put to sleep.
It's really decent turn for Luke there, getting rid of the Umbreon and keeping damage going down onto the Groudon. The problem is right now, though, is actually getting rid of that Umbreon kind of a troublesome one, because it now means that there's a free slot available on Renzo's side of the field, gets to bring in one of these Charizard or Venusaur, opts for the Charizard, the Sun is set up, the Dragapult, you know, is going to be limited on how many turns of Dynamax it has, in the fact it's only got one left. And, you know, it's going to be up to Luke to find a late game win condition and keep up this early momentum that he's trying to set up here. Of course, the Charizard doesn't have the defense drop. The Charizard doesn't have any drops to its attack. And, you know, they both know, the Charizard and the Groudon, that you got to go after the Dragapult. The Dragapult's the threat here. The Togekiss has to switch out. So you can spend a little time focusing on the Dragapult. If you're feeling really cheeky, you can try and punish the potential switch in to the Togekiss slot. Something like the, I'd say pretty safe would be a Precipice Blades, based on what we've seen so far. You know, the Togekiss, the only thing that avoids it is gone. Would catch the Zacian very nicely, would obviously hit the Urshifu for a lot of damage as well. You know, it's still +1 for this Groudon, but Renzo deciding, you know what, it's time to get my own Dynamax, or in this case, I'm imagining a Gigantamax into play as well. There it is. There's the Charizard. Take advantage of the sun and the solar power. No messing around with the rain this time.
No, that Charizard is going to be able to do a lot for Renzo, and I agree with you completely that while Luke might have been able to take a knockout here, there was a free switch, and now Charizard gets a chance to play a little bit in this game. Dragapult, though, goes for the Max Geyser, and it is going to be targeting down that Groudon. And the sun, no, not going to be doing too much, but it does at least change the weather here. So Charizard not going to be doing nearly as much damage. Its solar power ability is not active anymore, but Charizard is going for a max airstream, and at the low HP that Dragapult was at, it will be able to be knocked out. I
think the desperation to change the weather there and take away that sun, yes, I can see why it's important, and it was impactful in game number 2, but I think getting some premium damage down somewhere else on the board could have been more important. Of course, if the Urshifu's in the back, and I imagine it is, that does change it, but on that turn alone, it just doesn't look like the most impactful play. Now the Urshifu's in the rain, so things are looking a little bit better, I'd say, for Luke, you know, being able to capitalize on that with the Surging Strikes, doing more damage. You know, you're not trying to throw them out in the sun, but, you know, this Groudon is still on the field, causing problems, and you know, the change that we're talking about in game number 2 of resetting the weather is just a play that it looks like is going to be worked on. You got to do the first bit. You got to get the Groudon out of the field first, and that's exactly what's coming in this turn.
Yeah, Venusaur going to hit the field now, and a Max Guard just to play things safe here for Renzo. Togekiss is still taking a nap, which means that it hasn't been able to be particularly useful yet, but just an Aqua Jet going into the Venusaur that switched in. A pretty mute turn, I would say, but maybe putting Renzo in a bit of a better position.
The better position comes from the fact Groudon is in the back. I mean, the Groudon's going to be able to come in, set the sun, really deal with that Urshifu and say, you know what, you're not able to do that much damage anymore. You know, the Aqua Jet, not enough. Maybe needed to try and find something a little bit different, but there's not really many options for the Urshifu. The Urshifu is there to deal with the Groudon and the Charizard. I really don't see a clean answer to the Venusaur right now, and it's going to get even worse when the Venusaur is able to come back in a little bit later with access to those Chlorophyll turns as well. So nice little bit of repositioning from Renzo. Gets away with it, nigh on scot-free. Only that Aqua Jet damage down onto the Venusaur. But now this Charizard's able to lay down exactly what it wants. This Togekiss hasn't been able to play the game, and with the solar power and the sun, it's not going to get a chance to do anything else in this game.
Nope. Was just taking a well-earned nap, which we all need sometimes. But the Urshifu is going to be going for these Surging Strikes, and Adam, I don't even think that's going to be enough to knock out Groudon after 3 hits.
I've crunched the numbers real quick, and it's not. It comes close. I think my numbers were slightly higher than that, but Groudon, you know, is able to hold on through that one. And Urshifu's Focus Sash there removed by the G-Max Wildfire as well. So the last couple turns looking pretty easy, I'd say, for Renzo in this one. Yes, it's got a Zacian to get through. It is going to be full health. It is going to come in and get its Intrepid Sword boost. But realistically, I mean, this Charizard, you know, putting itself in a good position is probably just waiting for its partner Venusaur to come in and provide that speedier option with something like the, you know, the Chlorophyll and just throwing down those attacks. Does have to be a little bit careful. I think Luke's win condition here, if he's fishing for one, does rely on a potential substitute. Substitute be able to go up first before the Charizard gets to attack. You know, if the Heat Wave doesn't hit, like we saw in game number 1, if the Heat Wave misses, then you're not able to break that substitute very easily. It could be a substitute and hope that you don't get hit with Precipice Blades or Heat Wave. If you go for it though and they both hit, the substitute's immediately gone, the damage is immediately there to follow up as well. Because the Urshifu right now, best option is close combat, and that's going to be a problem. Of course, the Urshifu isn't going to appreciate these spread moves very much either, especially in the sun. Let's see exactly how much this Heat Wave does to it.
Ooh, yeah, that's a pretty significant chunk of damage. Obviously, Urshifu, though, is going to be able to fire back with another Surging Strikes, but it's going after the Charizard, not the Groudon.
The Charizard's not going to get knocked out by that either. All three of them, even though they're critical hits, just not doing enough. And that means that this Groudon able to follow up on it, of course, into the Protect of the Zacian. But that doesn't matter. You only needed the one important one to hit. No more Urshifu for the rest of this game. A critical hit in response onto the Urshifu. A little bit ironic as we wrap up the game. That's more Urshifu's speed. Maybe hoping the Charizard would be felled by the solar power, but now it's Zacian versus 3, and Zacian with no substitute setup either.
Wow, the poor Zacian there, I think, is gonna have way too hard of a time here. You know, Renzo still has access to that Scorching Sands. The sunlight is still happening, and yeah, I think this Zacian, we're just moments away from Renzo being able to move forward through the lower bracket here.
Yeah, Zacian playing it, trying to play it safe and let the solar power do the work. It's not going to get it though with a failed double protect. Scorching Sands to land a bit of damage, not enough for the knockout, but Groudon missing the Precipice Blades, not getting it there. It doesn't look any better for Zacian at the end of this turn, though. It's still getting hit by G-Max Wildfire, and it's still got 2 Pokemon facing it down on the other side of the field. With single target only attacks, it's not looking super healthy.
Not looking too good. And yeah, Venusaur can just go ahead and fire and earth power as well, so
yeah, Venusaur's able to come in and wrap this up with that chlorophyll. The Zacian not really able to show its prowess in this one. It does get the protector, really making Renzo work for this one, but you know, making sure that it all goes according to plan. Make sure there's no way out. It's just gonna get caught by the G-Max Wildfire though.
It's still alive.
It's trying its best, but there's no way out for it. And I think Luke's just extending this game for us, showing off his team for one last time as he will be leaving the tournament. Zacian going for another protect.
Doesn't get it.
No.
Venusaur will be able to knock it out with the earth power. Congratulations to Renzo for taking this series 2-1. But man, Luke's team was so cool to watch, Adam. I had so much fun getting